Yes, sir.
Hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. Today we will have the Hindu newspaper analysis dated 18th of October 2022. And today I have listed the most important articles in the second slide. So I will take you through the topics that we will cover, and after then we will start covering the topics one by one. Okay. So let us quickly have a look on the topics that we are going to cover from the Hindu newspaper. So the first article, it says tread carefully, okay, or treat carefully. So this article is an important article from the perspective of inflation. So we are going to understand about role of inflation, we are going to understand about what is inflation, we are going to talk about like what the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India said, and like are they going to take any action in this perspective. Okay, we are going to understand about recent highlights related to inflation and Monetary Policy Committee review. Okay, then the second topic is also from the Indian economy section, which is important for the GS paper 3 of the mains exam, and it is also important for the GS GS paper of the prelims exam. So in this article, you know, this topic is related to recovery analysis that points out what India got wrong. Okay, so in this article we are going to talk about a report that was released by the World Bank, and we are going to talk about what does this report talk about, you know, recovery analysis of Indian economy, and in what perspective, you know, this report is, you know, highlighting multiple measures. So we are going to discuss about the World Bank report. After this, the third topic is related to Interpole. Okay, so Interpole is International Police Organization. Okay, so we are going to talk about what is the role of Interpole. We are going to discuss about the recent highlights related to Interpole and why Interpole has said that Interpole has no role in curbing state-sponsored terrorism. Okay, so in this article we will also discuss about. Okay, we will also discuss about you know, this state-sponsored terrorism. What do we mean by state-sponsored terrorism? Okay, so this topic becomes important from GS paper 2 perspective under international relations, and it is also important for GS paper 3 for internal security related things. Okay, so we are going to discuss in detail about this topic. After then we will take into account this topic which says One Nation, One Fertilizer scheme. Okay, so recently the Prime Minister of India has launched One Nation, One Fertilizer scheme. So we will understand about the highlights of this scheme, and also we are going to talk about why there was a need of One Nation, One Fertilizer scheme. Okay, so this topic is also relevant from Indian economy perspective. So it seems that like economy related articles are in highlight nowadays because of multiple things. Okay. Apart from this, the last topic is, it says about 41.5 crore Indians out of multidimensional poverty since 2005 to 2006. Okay, so we will understand about what is multidimensional poverty. Okay, we will discuss about multidimensional poverty index. We will also learn about which organization releases the multidimensional poverty index. Okay. So with this, let us take the first topic for discussion. Okay, we are going to discuss this topic in detail. Okay, so this topic is related to inflation. Okay, so it says price growth trends need to be watched closely before raising interest rates. Okay, so like before I talk about this topic in detail, I would like to, you know, discuss about what is inflation. Inflation simply means increase in prices of goods and services. For example, last year, let's say you have purchased something at rupees 100, right? But like this year, if you're willing to purchase the same thing, you may have to pay, let's say, 110 rupee. So for purchasing the same thing, you have paid 10 rupees more, right? Or you're like you have to pay 10 rupees more. This is known as inflation. Means like when the general price, means generally the prices of goods and services in the economy increases, it is known as inflation. Okay, it is known as inflation. So inflation to some extent is considered good for the growth of the economy, and like, you know, we do have the Reserve Bank of India, and under Reserve Bank of India we have Monetary Policy Committee. The Monetary Policy Committee takes, you know, certain steps to keep the inflation level under control, to keep inflation, you know, at certain rates. Okay, it does not allow the inflation, I mean, like, to go, you know, beyond manageable levels, and it also, you know, tries to maintain certain level of healthy inflation. Okay, so like, you know, it tries to like not allow the economy to go, you know, in a deflationary pressure. So we are going to discuss about, you know, this particular issue in detail. So after understanding what is inflation, let us discuss about like why, you know, people are talking about raising the interest rate. Okay, so what has happened recently, like it was noticed that like prices of goods and services in the economy was increasing, it is increasing. Okay, so like it has been in news, you know, last month, last month, that like, you know, prices are all time high, you know, like prices of goods and services, especially food commodities, were all time high. Okay, consumable items, like, you know, prices of consumable items were all time high. So like, is there something that the government of India can do, or the Reserve Bank of India can do? Generally, like Reserve Bank of India, you know, comes up with monetary policy, and under that monetary policy, the Reserve Bank of India, you know, takes certain measures so that, like, you know, inflation can be, okay, inflation can be tackled. Okay, so what has Reserve Bank of India done? The Reserve Bank of India is reviewing like whether it has to increase the, you know, repo rate. Okay, so here now we need to understand that Reserve Bank of India plays a very good role in you know, controlling the inflation. Okay, for controlling the inflation, Reserve Bank of India has certain tools in it. One of the tool is known as repo rate. One of the tool is known as repo rate. So when the repo rate increases, then, like, you know, Reserve Bank of India charges more interest rate from, it charges more interest rate from those like those banks who are borrowing money from the Reserve Bank of India. Okay, so this is the rate at which the Reserve Bank of India lends money to different banks. When the repo rate increases, okay, when the repo rate increases, banks find it difficult to borrow from Reserve Bank of India, and in turn banks give loan to consumers, give loan to the corporates at a higher interest rate. Okay, so when it is given at a higher interest rate, generally, you know, the businesses will be facing difficulty, you know, to get loans at cheaper prices. So what it does, like, you know, it tries to control the inflation level. Okay, so that the purchasing power of the people, I mean, like, although like purchasing power is something, you know, a different concept, like, you know, increasing the repo rate reduces the demand. Okay, reduces the demand of goods in the economy to some level. Okay, so like, you know, repo rate, you know, tweaking repo rate has, you know, some effect on the demand supply dynamics. Okay, so this is the thing. So we have understood about that RBI has a role to play like in tackling inflation, right, in maintaining a healthy inflation in the economy. When the inflation goes up, Reserve Bank of India may take a decision to increase the repo rate, right, to start charging more money from the banks, more interest rate from the banks when they come to the RBI for borrowing money. Okay, it will in turn, like, you know, make the you know, if someone wants to get loan, so they have to pay more interest rate. So this is the thing. So what has happened, like some of the people are thinking like that Reserve Bank of India should increase the repo rate. Okay, it should increase the repo rate, and at the same time many people are saying, like, you know, this is not the right time to increase the repo rate. Like Reserve Bank of India should, I mean, like, you know, like stay neutral for some time, and after then, like, you know, it can think of increasing the repo rate. So how? Basically, like, if Reserve Bank of India increases the repo rate, so it will have, you know, some effect on the demand side, right? So demand side will go down and inflation can be tackled. But people, like, recently the consumer price index has been released, okay, which is known as CPI in short. Consumer price index has shown that prices of commodities, prices of goods and services, right, has increased. Prices of goods have increased because of increase in the price of food items, especially, you know, some of the like vegetables and cereals. Okay, so vegetables and cereals were the biggest culprits. I mean, like, vegetables and cereals were the biggest thing where the prices has gone up. Okay, so the prices has gone up in these things only, okay. Like it has rise to a substantial 2.6% from preceding month. Staple grains including rice and wheat climbed 11.5% from September 2021 and increased 2% from August levels. So like prices of food items has gone up, okay. So people are saying that prices, when the prices of food items goes up, there should be some other measure instead of increasing the repo rate. Instead of increasing the repo rate, the RBI should think of like doing something else, okay. So people have said like there should be a close watch on the economy, like one should see how the economy is performing, right. There should be a the economy like price and growth trends need to be watched closely before raising the interest rate, before raising the repo rate, okay. So if we talk about like what are the instruments that are available with the Reserve Bank of India for controlling inflation, there are many things. Like one of the thing is like increasing the repo rate or decreasing the repo rate, means like repo rate is one of the instrument. Then statutory liquidity ratio, which is in short known as SLR. SLR is also like an instrument with RBI that it can tweak. Then we have we have reverse repo rate, right, repo rate, then like SLR. Then we also have cash reserve ratio, which is in short known as CRR, okay. CRR is a tool with the Reserve Bank of India that it can tweak. CRR, cash reserve ratio, is the like percentage of the total deposits that the banks save with the Reserve Bank of India. For example, there are many scheduled commercial banks. We as consumers, like we as customers of the bank, we deposit our money into the bank. But like bank does not keep all the money with itself. What it does, it like gives this money to RBI like as security, as deposit, and this is non-interest bearing instrument. Means like some portion, let's say the banks are receiving 100 rupees. Out of 100 rupees, the bank will be keeping 4 rupees with the RBI, okay, 4 rupees with the RBI. And for this, like these banks will not be getting any interest, okay. These banks will not be getting any interest on the like CRR, on the cash reserve ratio that it maintains with the RBI. So RBI can tweak the cash reserve ratio as well, okay. Apart from this, there are multiple other measures, qualitative measures also, okay. So we will discuss about that thing later, but at this point of time we need to understand that the prices of goods and services has increased in the recent month, this month, previous month, because of increase in the prices of food grains, because of increase in the prices in the vegetables, okay. So the when we talk about consumer price index, mainly the inflation was triggered by the increase in the prices of food grains and vegetables, including cereals. And apart from this, like if we talk about what is the combined weight of the CPI, right, in the basket, like that is used for inflation, it is around 15.7%. And apart from this, like if we talk about like wholesale price index, okay, causing wholesale level prices to accelerate by an eye-watching 39.7. So the thing is, in the month of September also, we have also noticed that wholesale price index has also gone up, okay. Consumer price index has risen, wholesale price index has also risen because of multiple factors. But like what should RBI do? RBI should keep a close watch on the prices of goods and services and also price trends before taking any decision related to tweaking any of the monetary policy instruments to control the inflation level in the economy, right. So you can read this article in detail. You will understand about what the Deputy Governor of the RBI, okay, Deputy Governor Michelle Patra, okay, like what the Deputy Governor said. So the Deputy Governor noted that Bank's Monetary Policy Committee meeting last month that India is a net commodity importer with over a third of the CPI being imported, okay. So when we talk about consumer price index, so this particular consumer price index has list of goods, list of items, right, that are weighted for calculating the CPI. And out of those list of items, like majority of them are being imported from outside, okay. Majority of them are being imported from outside. Then like so India is a net commodity importer. For example, when we talk about export import thing with respect to Indian economy. So when we talk about commodities, we are importing more commodities than we are exporting. So India is a net importer, net commodity importer. Okay. So with this, let us talk about another article. We will discuss about another article. So this article is related to Indian economy, which is important under GS paper 3 of the mains exam. It is also important for the prelims exam, because in this article we will talk about a specific report that was released by the World Bank. Okay, that was released by the World Bank. So let us talk about the report that was released by the World Bank. So a recent World Bank report titled Correcting Course. Okay, name of the report is Correcting Course, and this report was released by the World Bank. Okay, so we will discuss about what this report talks about, why this report has importance, like why India should bother about a report that is released by the World Bank. Okay, so we will discuss about all of it, and we will also talk about the highlights of this report. Okay, so when we talk about World Bank, okay, when we talk about World Bank, so World Bank is an international financial institution, and it is an intergovernmental institution. Intergovernmental, I mean like body. It is international financial institution and intergovernmental body, means governments of different countries are members of the World Bank. Okay, so when we talk about the World Bank, okay, so World Bank is a international body, and like if World Bank is releasing a report, right, and in that report if they mention something about India, that becomes very important for the government of India, for the people of India to think, right, what this report is talking about, to look into that matter. So here what has happened, under this particular report, okay, Correcting Courses, the World Bank has discussed about like how different countries have played their role in recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so different countries have adopted different strategies, they have adopted different measures, they have adopted different paths or routes to recover from COVID-19. So in this report they have also discussed about like what steps were taken by government of India, right, for recovering from COVID-19, and which of these steps were good, and like they have also mentioned about those steps that did not play greater role, right. So now it is talking about that like the COVID-19 pandemic, like if we talk about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the global poverty. So many people have been pushed towards poverty because of COVID-19. Many people have been pushed towards poverty because of COVID-19. So like so like the number of people living in extreme poverty rose by 7 crore million in 2020, as the global poverty rate rose from 8.4% in 2019 to 9.3% in 2020. So this report is talking about that the poverty rate, global poverty rate has increased because of COVID-19 pandemic. And this is the first time in 2 decades that the poverty rate has gone up. Okay, means like after 20 years, I mean within during a span of 20 years, this was the time then that the poverty rate has gone up, right. And so like different countries have adopted different measures to recover from this particular phase. And recently what has happened, right, recently a report has been released. Okay, 2 reports have been released. One of the report is Global Hunger Index, right, and so it was released by Wealth Hunger Life, okay, and Concern Worldwide. So Global Hunger Index has also highlighted that India has huge prevalence of hungry children, I mean like huge prevalence of hunger. India was ranked at 107th position out of 119. Okay, India was placed at 107 out of 119 countries that were ranked under Global Hunger Index. Okay, so it shows that like people are not able to afford, okay, many people are not able to afford food for themselves. Okay, so that's why they are sleeping hungry. And apart from this particular report, I mean here they also talk about multidimensional poverty. They talk about multidimensional poverty, and recently multidimensional poverty index has been released. We will talk about which organization releases the multidimensional poverty index. So we are going to discuss about it in detail. But before this, let us talk about what this particular report focuses on. Name of the report is Correcting Courses. It is released by the World Bank. Okay, the report focuses on fiscal policy as an instrument for governments in dealing with crises such as the pandemic. So it is saying that poorer countries, those countries that are poor, okay, those countries that are poor, so they were unable to use the fiscal policy as effectively and thus unable to offset the impact of pandemic to a much lesser degree than the richer countries. So this report is talking about a country that is richer was able to utilize fiscal policy to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic induced poverty. And at the same time, those countries that are poor, that are small, small in terms of economic capability, so those countries could not use the fiscal policy to lessen the gravity of COVID-19 induced poverty. Okay. So the report identifies 3 priorities for fiscal policy for governments to aid with post-pandemic recovery. Okay. So what are the 3 priorities? Okay, we are going to talk about those 3 priorities that have been identified by this report, Correcting Courses. One of the priority is targeted subsidies that benefit the poor. Okay, one of the priority that the report talked about is targeted subsidies that benefit the poor. Second priority, this is the second priority that talks about public investment to build resilience in the long term. Okay. First one is targeted subsidy. First one is talking about subsidy. I mean during COVID-19 you might have noticed that the finance minister Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman time and again came and discussed about different measures that were taken by the central government to address the various issues that we are facing. And at the same time various state government even chief ministers were coming live time and again to discuss about the steps that they are taking. Okay. So targeted subsidies that benefit the poor. Second priority was public investment to build resilience in the long term. Okay, public investment. Okay, so during that time period, you might have noticed that the finance minister of India has announced that we will have national infrastructure pipeline. Okay, they have announced that we will have national infrastructure pipeline. So that was a public investment. Okay, public investment means something where the government is spending so that people get jobs. Okay, and at the same time, right, at the same time we create resilient infrastructure. Okay, we build infrastructure. And the third was revenue mobilization that should rely on progressive direct taxation rather than indirect taxes. Okay. Revenue mobilization means moving money, right, moving revenue from one source to other source, from one place to other place. Okay, revenue mobilization. You might be knowing that revenue means how does the government generate revenue. Government generates revenue from primarily 2 things. Primarily I am talking about, there are multiple ways that the government can generate revenue from. One of the ways to generate revenue by the government is direct taxation. They can impose direct taxes, right, on Indian citizens, on Indian business to raise revenue. Other is indirect taxation. Okay, indirect taxation. For example, if we talk about direct taxation, the income tax, right, if someone is earning money, if they are above certain threshold, they have to pay income tax to the government. So that is a direct tax. If we talk about indirect taxation, the goods and services tax that we pay, it is an indirect tax. Okay, so these are the 2 things through which the government raises the revenue, through which the government raises the revenue to meet certain objectives of the government, for providing subsidies for the welfare of the citizens and for implementing certain government policies and schemes. Okay, so this report, which is known as Correcting Course, right, which is released by the World Bank, it talks about 3 priority areas, right, in the fiscal policy that the governments have used, that the governments of different countries have used, right? Some governments were able to use it effectively, some governments were not able to use it effectively. One of the priority area was targeted subsidies that benefit the poor, okay? Second, like in this article we will talk about those subsidy schemes, okay, those subsidy schemes that were launched by the government. Then second is public investment to build resilience in the long term. Third is revenue mobilization that should rely on progressive direct taxation, okay, rather than indirect taxes. The focus on fiscal policy has merit. A recent ODI paper, okay, research paper was recently released. It says fiscal policy and income inequality, the role of taxes and social spending, okay. So this is a paper, this is a research paper that was recently released. Its name is Fiscal Policy and Income Inequality, the role of taxes and social spending, okay. So government of India or government of many other countries, they impose taxes on their citizens, on the businesses that are running in their jurisdiction, right? And then they you know, do social spending also. They take certain welfare measures. They have, you know, like government schemes through which they provide subsidies to their people, right? So if we talk about role of taxes, means through taxes government receives money, and when we talk about social spending, through subsidies government spend money, right? So in this thing what happens, like, you know, this is done through fiscal policy, and like, you know, so they have released a paper in this perspective, and this particular paper says it aggregates evidence on social spending and taxes from across the world and comes to similar conclusion regarding the importance of fiscal policy in post-pandemic recovery, okay. So after COVID-19 pandemic has hit the world, so government were trying to, recover from the thing. They were trying to deal with the imminent situation, and after then they were trying to recover, financially recover from the COVID-19, from the COVID-19. So this is the thing. So how does the World Bank conducts, makes that report, correcting, we have talked about a report. So how does the World Bank, compile the data? So the World Bank report takes data, or it relies on the Consumer Pyramid Household Survey, okay, which is known as CPHS. World Bank takes data from here, and it is, this particular survey is conducted by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, CMIE. And after then, they take the official poverty data in the absence of official poverty data since 2019, and using the estimate they release the report. And if we talk about which programs were running, right, which programs were running in India, to tackle the COVID-19 induced difficulties. So that time what the government has done, government has increased allocation of money in the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantees Act, okay. What has happened, basically, during that time, the poor laborers, wage laborers, they did not have money, okay, they did not have money, and they were facing difficulties. So government of India has raised, money under this scheme. Raised money means, earlier, if people were working, they were being given some amount, but now they have increased the amount by rupees 20 per day, okay. So you might be knowing MG Narega is a government scheme under which people get guaranteed employment of about 100 to 150 days, right, in a financial year, and in that guaranteed employment they get money, and they means laborers get money from the places where they are working, and government asks them to build infrastructure. So their government is involved in building the social infrastructure, for example building, making school buildings, creating roads, making wells, yeah. So a lot of social infrastructure is being developed by the government under this particular scheme, and this scheme is also benefiting the poor people who do not get any job, right. So this is the thing. So apart from this, this article also talks about a highlight but no long term solution. So during the COVID-19, the government of India, right, the only saving grace was the announcement that 80 crore people in India would get food aid through the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, okay. So during that time, the government of India released a report, okay, during that time the government of India has announced a program which is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. So this particular, you know, scheme mainly, I mean, like, you know, like was mainly announced to bring people out of distress because of COVID-19, okay. So like, you know, here the government has done some expenditure, but like if we talk about global hunger index that I discussed in the beginning of this article, that has ranked India at 107th place out of 121 countries. Sorry, it is 121 country as you know, like that have been ranked by the global hunger index, right. So it demonstrates that food aid is not a long-term solution and certainly does not solve the problem of chronic malnutrition, okay. So during that time, during COVID, government of India has given food aid, like it has provided food to the people, but like, you know, that was not a long-term solution. It was just a short-term solution to, I mean, like, you know, tackle that situation, but like it does not provide long-term solution to the thing, okay. So we have to do something else to curb the problem of chronic malnutrition, okay, to curb the problem of chronic malnutrition. So with this, we will take, you know, we will understand about some other aspects associated with this article. It says Optus tax policies, okay. So like what has happened, like different countries around the world has different taxation policies. In India also we have a taxation policy where, like, you know, we apply taxes, you know, direct taxes and indirect taxes. For direct taxes also, like we have a slab, you know, like we have a slab type of thing that like people who earn less than a particular amount, let's say like less than 2.5 lakh a year, they do not come under taxable bracket and they do not have pay tax, they do not have to pay taxes to the government. And those people who earn between 2.5 lakh to 5 lakh, they have to pay certain amount of taxes, but like, you know, they get exemptions also. Apart from this, those people who earn more than 5 lakh a year, so they have to pay taxes like in some bracket, okay, they come under some tax bracket. And people who are earning more than 10 lakh a year, they have to, they generally come under 30% tax bracket. So that's how direct taxation is done by the government. When we talk about indirect taxation, for example, tax under GST, okay. So government has decided, I mean, like, you know, GST rates for different types of goods and different types of services. For different goods, for you know, there are different tax slabs. For example, for some goods there is 5% taxation, for some goods there are 12% GST rate, for some good there is 18% GST rate, okay. So government of India has decided the GST rates for different commodities, different services, so through which, like, you know, government does taxation. But when we talk about taxation practices, the taxation practices vary from country to country. Different countries are charging tax, I mean, like, you know, they apply tax differently across, you know, like in their own jurisdiction. So if we talk about, you know, the government of India, okay, so government of India has reduced the corporate taxes from 30% to 22%, okay. So but the thing is, what has happened, it has reduced the total revenue that the government got that time, okay. So like this particular report that, like, you know, reducing the corporate taxation from 30% to 22% like has reduced the total inflow of money for the government. This report was released by the Parliamentary Standing Committee, Parliamentary Committee on Estimates, Parliamentary Committee on Estimates. At the same time, corporate profits soared as reported by CMIE. CMIE we have already discussed in the beginning of the lecture, right? So like through all of this, and in spite of the World Inequality Report terming India as a poor and very unequal country, India has refused to reintroduce wealth tax or indeed an inheritance tax, okay. So like this World Inequality Report said that, like, India is a very poor and very unequal country, okay. So unequal means, like, here many people are earning so much that, like, they come under top 5 wealthy people of the world, and at the same time we have huge number of people in India, like, who are you know, like sleeping without eating food. I mean, like, we have huge number of people who are under or below poverty level. At the same time, we have, you know, many people like who are like the top richest persons in the world. Okay, so there is huge inequality in India. Okay, and we have huge prevalence of poverty in India. Poverty means the people are poor. Many people, I mean, like in India are poor. So this is the thing. So we have discussed about this. Then mandarins within the Indian economic management establishment often claim that India kept its powder dry in 2020-21 by being fiscally conservative. Okay, this is right. I mean, like during COVID-19, government of India, right, was fiscally conservative. It was not spending, I mean, like, recklessly. So it was spending after doing proper analysis, in those areas that were the most important areas at that point of time, like meeting the requirement of the oxygen, making it sure that the poor people are getting their food, making it sure that, like, people are able to travel from their houses to the hospitals, making it sure that the doctors are protected. So they have, like, looked into those areas that were most important at that point of time. But for that also there are criticism. I mean, like, people criticize government for not taking, I mean, like, various other steps. But the thing is, like, when situation arises, one has to be conservative, one has to take those steps only which are most important, right? So this is the thing. So with this, let us take another topic for discussion. In this article, we will understand about what is Interpole. We will learn about what is Interpole, and we will understand about, like, why, there is an article related to Interpole recently. We will discuss, various roles that are played by Interpole. So if we talk about Interpole, right, Interpole stands for International Police Organization. Okay, International Criminal Police Organization, like, Interpole. Okay, this is simply International Police Organization, an organization, right, that actually coordinates with different countries, right, to find out terrorists in different areas. I mean, like, they look into multiple areas of policing. Okay, so they directly like every country. If we talk about, like, India has an organization that is known as CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation. So CBI is the central coordinating agency from India that coordinates with Interpol. Similarly, there are many countries, right, they have their own central coordinating agency that coordinates with Interpol. For example, there is a criminal from India. Criminal, he has, let's consider, done some crime in India. Crime may be of any nature. It can be a criminal offense, it can be a financial offense, a person, like, who has, let's consider, done some criminal activity. They go outside in some other countries, right, but, like, then it becomes difficult for the security enforcement agencies in India to identify that person, to find location of that person. So they report, I mean, like, to the Interpol that so and so person is on the run, this person has done this and this crime, and he is wanted in India. If you get to know the whereabout of this particular person, please report to the CBI, and like, we will take, certain steps to bring that person back from the other jurisdiction. For bringing persons back from other jurisdiction, we do have, like, a different kind of understandings with other country. So, like, we do have extra, like, extradition. We have signed, extradition treaties also with other countries, right? So we extradite people. For example, one of the offenders from India, let's consider he is staying in United Kingdom, he is staying in UK or some other countries, like, the governments know, but, like, Indian police cannot go there and, like, bring him back directly without their permission. So, like, we do have a treaty which is known as extradition treaty. So we request their security agencies, we request, their respective like, departments for coordination, and we ask them to extradite so and so person from their jurisdiction to India, so that they can be tried in Indian courts. Okay, so they can be tried in Indian courts. So we do have extradition treaties with different countries, right? So, like, role of Interpol is to maintain database of the terrorists, to maintain database of the offenders who have been reported by different jurisdiction, to know about their whereabouts. And Interpol coordinates with the, like, central agencies of different countries. For example, in case of India, CBI is the central agency, right? So CBI is the central agency that coordinates. Similarly for UK, for US, for some Latin America countries, so the central coordinating agency may be different, but like that's how like we coordinate with other countries. So we have understood about what is Interpol. After understanding what is Interpol, we will now understand about, right? We will now understand about the recent highlights related to Interpol. So the Secretary General, okay, the Interpol Secretary General, his name is Jürgen Stock, okay. This person said on Monday that International Criminal Police Organization was not playing any role in curbing state-sponsored terrorism, and it focused primarily on ordinary law crimes. Now let's understand what do we mean by state-sponsored terrorism. Let me give you an example, okay. So what has happened in 2008, there was bomb blast, there was an attack on the Taj Hotel, okay. There was an attack in Mumbai Taj Hotel, and that attack was not done by a single person or multiple persons. That was done by that was orchestrated, that was planned by people from Pakistan, okay. That was planned by people from let's say Pakistan. So the thing is, this was a state sponsored terrorism, means some Pakistani officials, some people who were based in Pakistan, they have sent terrorists to attack on India, to attack on some establishments in India. We have seen attack on parliament, we have seen attack in Mumbai also, right? So these attacks are known as state sponsored, means state did not directly fight. Pakistan did not directly fight with India that time, okay. It was not a direct conflict between two nations. This was not a direct war between nations, but those countries are sponsoring terrorism in some other countries, okay. So that is known as state sponsored terrorism. But these state sponsored terrorism, it is not dealt by, the state sponsored terrorism is not dealt by International Criminal Police Organization. It is not being dealt by Interpol, okay. And so Interpol focused primarily on the ordinary law crimes. Ordinary law crimes means, let's say from here Nirav Modi has fled from India. Mehul Choksi, right? Many people have fled. So they are wanted in India for the financial crimes that they have done. So if government of India wants, they can report it to the CBI. They might have done it, right? We do not know the internal process that they might have followed, but they are most wanted people, right? Dawood Ibrahim, these are most wanted people. So these people have fled. So how do we know about whereabouts of these people? We coordinate with Interpol, okay. So they have done ordinary law crimes. These people have done ordinary law crimes of Indian jurisdiction, okay. So Interpol is dealing with those affairs. So recently, why Interpol was in news? Because Interpol is going to have a 4-day Interpol General Assembly that that is about to start on 18th October. Today is 18th October. So Interpol has is going to have General Assembly, and in this General Assembly they are going to discuss about multiple things from India. The Prime Minister of India is participating in that General Assembly, and the Home Minister of India is also participating. So Prime Minister of India will address the 90th General Assembly of the Interpol, and Union Home Minister, okay, Union Home Minister will give the valedictory address, okay. So that's why it was in news. So it was important for us to understand the functioning of Interpol, because it is another dimension that you people, after you become an IPS officer, you may one day look into the affairs of CBI. IPS officers become the Director General of CBI, right? So these people take up those roles. So you have to understand that CBI works with Interpol as well, right? So that's how we have understood about this topic. So with this, okay, so now here what has happened, they have also mentioned about what are the activities that are being done by Interpol. What are the activities? So Interpol says Interpol has taken multiple steps related to stopping the financial crimes. So less than 1% of the funds could be intercepted and recovered by the enforcement agencies. Criminal gangs also use cryptocurrencies to move proceeds of crime and evade detection. Okay. So the Secretary General of Interpole has said that the Interpole's global stop payment mechanism, it has global stop payment mechanism. So this is an anti-money laundering rapid response protocol, and it had helped member countries recover around $60 million in the past 10 months. Okay, and their global crime trend report also highlighted the massive increase in online child sexual exploitation and abuse. Okay, so Interpole has another branch. Okay, one of the branches related to Interpole's international child sexual exploitation. Okay, it has a database, and this database has helped investigators identify the average of 7 child abuse victims every day. So far 30,000 victims have been identified worldwide. Okay, so these are the things. Okay, this is a very important article. So we have understood about functioning of Interpol, role of Interpol. We have understood about the recent highlights related to Interpol. So with this we will take one more topic. Okay, in this topic we will discuss about one nation one fertilizer scheme. Earlier we have there were news, one nation one ration card scheme, one nation one one nation and there were one nation one election scheme. There were multiple schemes that the government of India talked about. Some of those schemes were brought into practice. For example, one nation one ration card, it is in practice, means like it has been enacted. But at the same time there are multiple other things that the government of India wants to unify. Okay, government of India is also talking about one nation one language scheme. Okay, so it's still that is in talks. People are talking about it. It has not been materialized. But the thing is, we will understand about one nation one fertilizer scheme. We will understand what does this scheme talk about, right? What is the importance of this scheme? Okay, and when it was launched. So recently the Prime Minister of India has inaugurated 600 Kisan Samriddhi Kendras. Okay, Kisan Samriddhi Kendras means these are those places where Kisan farmers will be given help. Okay, will be given help related to their farming activities, maybe financially. And one nation one fertilizer scheme. Okay, these two things were inaugurated by the Prime Minister. 600 Kisan Samriddhi Kendras were inaugurated, and one nation one fertilizer scheme was launched. Okay, and he said that these steps were being taken to modernize agriculture. Okay, what is the objective? The objective of launching one nation one fertilizer scheme is to modernize agriculture. Okay, we want to modernize agriculture. Apart from this, the Kisan Samriddhi Kendras would function as helping centers for farmers in this process. Okay, so Kisan Samriddhi Kendras. So these are the centers where farmers can reach and get help from. Okay, so PM was speaking at a conclave of farmers and 1500 startups in the agriculture sector, where he also released the 12th installment of the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi. Okay, PM Kisan Samman Nidhi is a government scheme, right, that was launched earlier, right. Under this scheme, the government of India directly transfers money to the account of the farmers. Okay, in 3 installments, 2,000 each. So they release about 6,000 rupees in a year to some eligible farmer families. Okay, so this is the thing. And under this scheme, 16,000 crore will be credited into the bank accounts of over 8.5 crore farmers. Over 2 lakh crore have been transferred to farmers, helping them manage cost, he said. Okay, so that were the statement of the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister said the amount under this scheme would be credited directly into the accounts of farmers. So what we are talking about? We are talking about the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi. Okay, we are talking about PM Kisan Samman Nidhi. Under this scheme, the government directly transfers money into the bank account of the farmers. And so in this process, there is no mediator, there is no middleman. Okay, the Prime Minister said there will be no mediator for this. Okay, he said that earlier urea factories in the country were closed down to benefit importers, and added that after 2014, the government took several steps and now the country was marching towards self-sustenance in liquid nano urea production. So the Prime Minister was highlighting about the steps that were taken by the central government since 2014. Why 2014? Because in 2014 the present party came into power. So they highlight about the important things that they have done, right? So they said that self-sustenance in liquid nano urea production. Nano urea will help farmers to address the issue of scarcity, okay? So now here we are talking about a different variety of urea which is known as nano urea, okay? Different variety of urea, and this like one nation one fertilizer scheme, I mean under this we will help farmers to get nano urea, okay? And so Prime Minister of India has also highlighted about the importance of nano urea. He said fertilizers would be rebranded as Bharat to help farmers, and it would reduce the prices of major fertilizers as transportation cost would be regulated. Under the one nation one fertilizer scheme, Government of India is doing multiple things. One of the thing is like it is helping farmers to get nano urea. Second thing is they are rebranding the urea brand. So they are naming the newly launched urea brand as Bharat, okay, Bharat. And apart from this will also help farmers to reduce the prices, because government is also going to regulate the transportation cost, okay, transportation cost for fertilizer. Why? So that like it becomes cheaper for the farmers to procure the fertilizer variety which is known as nano urea, okay. And so he has also talked about, he added that as part of observing millets year in 2023, the center would promote cultivation of millets, okay. So the year that is about to come, 2023, that year would be observed as the millet year, okay, like year of millets. So that time the Government of India is going to promote the cultivation of millets, okay. That time the government is going to promote the cultivation of millets. So new varieties of seeds were also being produced to meet the challenges of climate change, okay. So these are the things that this one nation and one fertilizer scheme is associated with. This is a newly launched scheme. You need to learn about various things like what is this scheme, what is the objective of this scheme, and how this scheme is going to be implemented. This scheme is going to be implemented through Kisan Samriddhi Kendras, okay. And under this scheme the Government of India wants to produce wants to produce nano urea. It wants to rebrand the urea in the name of Bharat, okay. Bharat will be the new name, right? So that's how it will be launched. It was already launched. Now let us discuss about another topic. This is a very important topic. This topic can directly come in the prelims exam next year, okay. It can directly come in the prelims exam next year. So let's discuss about this topic. We are going to discuss about what is multidimensional poverty index, how many people are multidimensionally poor in India. We will discuss about the basic fundamental concept, what is multidimensional poverty, right? So when we talk about multidimensional poverty, means generally as laymen we tend to see how much money does a person have, how much money does a family have. So the financial status of a family is not the only condition to check whether that family is poor or not, okay. When we talk about multidimensional poverty, it talks about it takes into account multiple important components. One of the component may be nutrition, whether people of that particular family are able to feed themselves properly, okay. So when we talk about multidimensional, okay, MDP, I am just writing MDP, it simply means multidimensional poverty. Just for my understanding I am writing this. So in multidimensional poverty, maybe nutritional status may be taken into account. The education status of the family members may be taken into account. The carpet area, how much area do they have for staying, how much area is, for example, with concrete, that is taken into account. Whether they are cooking the food using natural gas or they are using the stubble that they get from the field, from the forest. So what they are using for cooking, whether natural gas or whether some other thing, or they are using the raw products, the byproducts of the forest, right, that is taken into account. Education, nutrition, you know, financial status, these things are taken into account. If we talk about the multidimensional poverty index, okay, if we talk about global multidimensional poverty index, this index takes into account 10 different parameters for calculating multidimensional poverty status of different countries across the world. So recently a report has been released, okay. The global multidimensional poverty index has been released on Monday. Monday means yesterday this particular report has been released. And which organization releases this report? This report is released by the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, okay. It is released by United Nations Development Program and Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. In short, it is known as OPHI. So when we talk about multidimensional poverty index, okay, MPI, multidimensional poverty index, is released by UNDP, United Nations Development Program, plus OPHI. OPHI stands for Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. These two organizations together release the multidimensional poverty index, okay. So it was recently released and it talked about that, like, you know, for about 41.5 crore people exited poverty in India during 15-year period between 2005-06 and 2019-21, out of which 2/3 exited in the first 10 years and 1/3 in the next 5 years. It said that, like, you know, according to this particular report, multidimensional poverty index, right, they have mentioned that in India in the last 15 years, right, more than 41.5 crore Indians have come out of poverty, okay, they have come out of poverty. And out of these people, 2/3 of the people, right, 2/3 of 41 crore have come out of the poverty in the first 10 years. First 10 years means 2005-06 to 2015-16. And in the next, 1/3 of the portion, the next, next 1/3 of the people came out of poverty in 5 years, okay. So this was the report that was released, and it shows that the incidence of poverty fell from 55.1% in 2005-06 to 16.4% in 2019-21 in the country, and that deprivations in all 10 MPI indicators saw significant reduction, as a result of which the MPI value and incidence of poverty more than halved, okay. So the multidimensional poverty index value has, improved a lot, right, improved a lot, because, like, you know, the India has improved on multiple front, right. Many people have come out of poverty. So as part of multidimensional poverty index, they use 10 different kind of indicators, okay. Improvement in MPI for India has significantly contributed to the decline in poverty in South Asia, and it is for the first time that it is not the region with the highest number of poor people, at 38.5 crore compared with 57.9 crore in sub-Saharan Africa, okay. So now, earlier India was the country that had highest number of people who were poor, you know, in absolute terms, but now that status has changed. We have, brought many people out of poverty. More than 41 crore people have been brought out of poverty in the last 15 years. Okay. Then the report does not fully assess the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on poverty in India. 71% of the data from the National Family Health Survey relied upon for MPI were collected before the pandemic, okay. So when we talk about this particular report, they have used majority of the data, before pandemic, before pandemic time, okay. During pandemic, they have not taken the data of the pandemic year. They have written 2019-21. They have not written 2019-20 or 2021. Why? Because, like, they have taken a gap, because, like, during COVID-19, every country around the world faced difficulty, okay, when it comes to, bringing people out of poverty, because that time people were going into poverty because of lockdown, because of, closure of businesses, because of loss of job, right, that were happening. So the global MPI constructs a deprivation profile of each household and person through 10 indicators spanning health, education, standard of living. All indicators are equally weighted within each dimension. The global MPI identifies people as multidimensionally poor if their deprivation score is 1/3 or higher. Bihar is considered the poorest state of India. Bihar, the poorest state in 2015-16, saw the fastest reduction in MPI value in absolute terms. The incidence of poverty there fell from 77.4% in 2005-6 to 34.7% in 2019-21. Okay. So here they have also talked about Nigeria. I mean, Nigeria is one of the African countries, right? It is in the African region. So that's how in this article we have discussed about which organization releases the multidimensional poverty index. It is released by two organizations together. One of the organization is UNDP, United Nations Development Program. Other organization is OPHI, right, which is Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. So these organizations together release, the multidimensional poverty index. So it is important for you to understand which organizations are releasing which data, what are the constituents of those reports, and like how they have rated India, okay, how they have rated India. So that's all for discussion for today. Thank you so much everyone for attending today's session. I hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you.